Okay. And we are live in the group. I'm gonna
Great.
Good Lord. Okay, I'm gonna confirm that. I'm so sorry, everyone who has been waiting patiently, I'm sure, for us to go live. I'm gonna confirm that we're live in the group, but it looks like we are. Well, gosh, so sorry, everyone. That was a little bit of a twist on the tech, but we will introduce ourselves properly here in just one moment. I'm confirming that we are, yes, we are live in the group. Okay, wonderful. Hi, Kathryn.
Hi, Jason. That was a little wild, right?
It was.
But we
Well,
got it done. I'm in great hands with you. So there we go.
here we are. We're in the group. Do you want to stop sharing your deck for one moment while we just chit chat
Okay.
and then we can jump into it? Maybe if that
Hey, you
works.
bet. You bet.
There you are. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to you and Cinnamon. And it
Yeah,
was great listening to Esther.
wasn't
So
that
thank
amazing?
you. Yeah, it was great.
Such a good session. Well, we're honored to have you here. I'm honored to be able to introduce you for to our community, and I'm embarrassed I haven't ever had you participate in our community until now. But it's just such a joy to be able to introduce you as a keynote speaker. You are just an amazing leader and an inspiring, development practitioner and fundraiser and change agent in the world. And you used to be my boss back in the
I
day.
was actually worked for you, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think that's how that went.
Well, it's just a joy to be able to have you here. And so, Strong Women, Strong World is just an amazing program that you've created and have led. And as the chief fundraising officer, chief development officer for it, you have such insight into what's happening in the lives of women and girls around the world. Obviously, our heart is in Zambia, and you've been there many, many times and know it so well. And so I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you share your heart. We had a video that we were going to share that in StreamYard wasn't working. So we'll forego that. But I know you've got some slides and photos, and just turn it over to you. And please just share from your heart. And then if it's okay, we'll do a Q&A session if people have questions towards the back end of the hour. So welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And thank you. As I said, it was great to hear Esther and all that she's doing and the great work that you're doing there. And so it's wonderful to be here. And it was wonderful to hear a bit of the founding of the work that Esther's doing with World Vision, which I was unaware of. And so for those of you that may know of World Vision, but not completely about World Vision, let me give you a quick little overview of who we are and what we do. Oh, no. There we go. And so we were founded by an evangelist filmmaker, Bob Pierce, in 1950, who wrote in the flyleaf of his Bible, "Let my heart be broken by the things that break the heart of God." And so World Vision has been helping children and families in their communities for over 70 years. And an example of that is what Esther was talking about. We respond to emergencies, develop communities, and advocate for change. We work with communities to bring long-lasting, holistic solutions to overcoming poverty, with local staff that are pre-positioned to respond both to emergencies, but also to help rebuild communities to stability. We also advocate for change from the grassroots, traditional, local levels to the national, global, and governing bodies such as the UN. And this broad reach has given World Vision a significant seat at the table on behalf of children's well-being. We work in over 100 countries, and we have about 46,000 staff globally. Of 95 to 97% are indigenous to the countries that they work in. And we generated last year $2.6 billion in revenue, and we reached 60 million people in our global COVID response. So all of that to say that World Vision's huge. We can feel overwhelming, But the great news is that we can be as small and as personal as you need us to be, such as the case with Esther, where we were able to partner with her at the very beginning of the work she was doing with the distribution of Gift in Kind to get her started in her programming. So we're excited that we can do that. More and more people are beginning to understand that we cannot expect to improve our societies, increase our economic status, or end extreme poverty while only half the population has the rights to access and opportunity. World Vision believes that all persons deserve equal respect, dignity, and rights to achieve their God-given potential. Strong Women, Strong World, no, sorry. Our work with gender equity is not new to World Vision. We have been a leader in this work for decades. In fact, it started with our founder, Bob Pierce, responding to the needs of a young girl named White Jade. And when Tina Hochgeber, who was a missionary in China, in the China conflict, said to Bob Pierce in 1950, here she is, what are you going to do with her? And he began supporting her. And thus that was our humble founding. So our gender equity work is integrated into everything that we do. And World Vision's comprehensive approach is bringing significant change to women and girls in these nearly 100 countries that we're working in, and has a very positive impact on ending extreme poverty. Strong Women, Strong World, we're committed to restoring dignity to women and girls in order to create a stronger world for all people. We don't, it's not at the exclusion of men or boys. If it was, then we'd end up with another program where we'd have to have strong men, strong world, right? And so we really strive and work very diligently to making sure that it's inclusionary of everybody, that it is really what I call gender reconciliation. How do we get ourselves into a place of rightful relationships with one another? Strong Women, Strong World has become the voice, World Vision's voice for women and girls that empowers philanthropists and advocates to advocate and change the dynamics of the lives of women and girls not only here, but there. The challenges that women and girls, and we heard a bit of it today from Esther when she was talking about the economic challenges that women face and the educational challenges that girls face. But I'd like to give you a bit of a greater global context to that. And the global water crisis hits girls and women the hardest. They spend approximately 200 million hours hauling water every day. 200 million hours hauling water. These hours rob them of getting an education, of learning a skill, or earning an income. Additionally, harmful practices and traditions hurt girls. Female genital mutilation, FGM, forced early marriage, early pregnancies persist. Every minute, 22 girls under the age of 18 are married. And this number is rising in the midst of the COVID pandemic, as desperate families are relying on the bride price that they can get for their daughters to sustain their families. That's 22 girls under every minute under the age of 18. Just think about your own daughters, if you have daughters under the age of 18, of marrying them to be able to support and sustain the rest of your family, such as the woman that Esther mentioned earlier that gave her last kwacha looking for an opportunity. You have to know that these families are desperate to take a stand like that. Getting pregnant is dangerous. More than 300,000 women die every year from preventable associated pregnancy challenges and crises in childbirth. And nearly 70,000 of these deaths occur among 15 to 19-year-old girls in the developing world. Women also have less access to economic opportunities, quality farming inputs, credit, and financial services. And although they comprise an average of 43% of the agricultural labor force in the developing world, nearly 1 billion women do not have access to financial services. And we heard Esther talk about that, the importance of giving women opportunity of being able to generate an income to be able to sustain their families. So we can talk about the global level is what I'm talking about, 1 billion women, but then Esther is talking about her individual circumstances in a much smaller context. Also, gender-based violence has become a shadow pandemic of COVID. In the emergency and refugee situations, more than 70% of women have experienced gender-based violence. 70%. That's 7 out of every 10. With the COVID lockdowns and quarantine, domestic violence has surged across the globe, including here in the US. But since 2016 at World Vision, we can say that we have made great strides towards changing some of those dynamics so that she can be protected and marry who and when she wants. Almost 1.2 million girls have benefited from programs that challenge those harmful practices, those that are cultural, social, and often spiritual norms that put them at risk. She can thrive because more than 1 million have gained access to financial services, savings groups, training, technology, and markets. She can be born healthy. And over 400,000 women of childbearing age have gained access to maternal and child health services. And she can be healthy and continue her education because more than 10 million women and girls have gained access to clean water close to home. As you can see on the education piece, we're lagging behind, and we do need to increase that and have a far more intentional focus on that. And that's where great partners like So Powerful are so important for us to be able to do that, to be able for us and as the global community of women and girls to be able to have that opportunity to have education. So 10 million have been reached in the last 5 years. And these numbers that we've achieved are huge. And we have to stop and celebrate and praise God for his provision, but we do have a long ways to go. And we know that when we deliberately prioritize women in every aspect of our work, knowing that when girls and women get information and knowledge and access to opportunity, they can improve their futures. What's more, they can improve the futures of their families and their communities and their countries. But we can't do it alone. Because the end of poverty does begin with her, not because she's stronger or better or more important than the boys and the men in her life and community, but because as human beings, we are stronger and better together, creating a stronger world for all. Empowering women and girls is so much more than a strategic focus or a priority. It's kingdom work. In Galatians 3:28, it describes us as equal and connected to each other as children of God. In God's kingdom, broken relationships between people are restored. All of us have value and all are free to pursue what God's given plan is for our potential and to become who God created, chose us to be when he called us to be with him and to be a part of him. So Powerful is committed to restoring women and girls. We heard about that in this last session with Esther and between Esther and Jason. focusing on women's economic opportunities and growing in those opportunities. And not only are their pocketbooks and their resources that they're able to provide for their families, but in their self-worth, in their dignity, and in their ability of knowing that they can do something. I often say that it's like if you look at a dandelion and the little flower on a dandelion, that's this little puffy ball. If you hold it, all you have to do is give it a tiny little flick and it floats. And that's all that these women need. And these girls that want to be in school, that are so hindered from being in school by something so simple as a menstrual pad, and that can make the difference. That's just the flick of what we're able to do. I'm convinced that if we together raise awareness, such as what So Powerful has been doing today, is raising awareness of the issues, and we use our influence by bringing our family, our friends, our networks together, such as all of you that are listening to this, and give of our resources of our time, our talent, and our treasures to volunteer and to be a part of this amazing ministry that Jason and Esther and Cinnamon are leading. So why should we do this? So that she can reach her full potential, and that ending extreme poverty is. And we will together create a stronger world for all. Thank you.
Amen. 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 Kathryn, thank you so much. I'm going to just have a call for Q&A. Now, we were going to do Q&A through StreamYard a little differently. So if you're with us in the Facebook group, I can look at it right now. I am looking at it. Feel free to leave questions for Kathryn, and then I'll relay them and kind of serve as the question asker. I have a few questions to start with, though. And Kathryn, if you want to stop sharing your deck, then we can both be on screen.
There we go.
There we are. Well, thank you so much. And I know you've spent a lot of time driving on the back roads of Zambia. You've been to a lot of places, really rural places in Zambia. And Dana Buck says, it's good to see you, by the way, Kathryn.
Oh, hi, Dana Buck. I miss you.
So you've been a lot of places in Zambia. Maybe describe the context in which the rural girl lives in terms of the access to educational options, even water. How does the whole element of her life in a rural context play out in terms of her access to education, and just a little bit of stories or just context for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, it almost makes me tear up to think about it. And because when a girl is born in these contexts, because of the cultural and the social norms in the Zambian context, she's born to grow up looking at her feet, because all she's going to do is walk to fetch water, to fetch firewood, and she can't even lift her head to be able to dream or to imagine what she could do or who she could be. And that's heartbreaking to think about that. And so if she, a 5-year-old girl, 6-year-old girl, she starts learning how to fetch water at her mother's side. And she now is walking with her mother to fetch water in a little pot or little whatever. And it's often dirty water, and it may make the family sick. And then she comes home. If she's before she goes to school, she's doing this to provide for the family.
Yeah.
And then she's also providing for the family to help them cook and to help them clean and to do all of the things before she can go to school.
Yeah.
And often there, and those are kilometers. I mean, we say the average is about a 6-kilometer round trip walk, right? For them to be able to do that. And it can often be longer. And then all of that happens before she goes to school. And she may have to do an extra one if she wants to clean up or wash her face or do anything like that. And then now she's walking to school. and she may be late to school because she's been doing all of this.
Yeah.
And she's probably tired from it. And so she's not going to be paying attention in school that well. And that's going to be harder. And often in these schools, they have to fetch their own water to take to school because there's no water at the school. And then she comes home at the end of the day. And then now there's other chores. She has to fetch water again. She has to help cook. She has to help clean, to take care of her siblings, and then do her schoolwork if she's able to do her schoolwork. So you could see that she's absolutely already at a deficit.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a study done by the Gates Foundation that they put out that you are already behind if you're born a girl anywhere in the world, but it's tenfold challenging in the developing world. And that's the Zambian context.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they can't dream or imagine. And
Yeah.
then when she's of menstrual age,
Yeah.
then she can't, then that hinders her. She misses 4 or 5 days of school a month, then
Yeah.
she's behind, and the whole cycle starts all over. Is that too much information? But it's
No, not at all. No,
Mhm.
no. This is,
Yeah.
I think it's important context for everybody to understand, and the intensity of the ruralness, of Zambia is, I mentioned in the conversation with Esther, but it's like, let's say, for example, if you want to go into the Western frontier provinces, I mean, you're talking about half day, all day, 2-day dirt road driving to get to the little villages that are very small school options, and the children, if they even get to go to school, would have to walk for a long way. So really, really challenging context. Another question, talk to us about the integration of water and sanitation and the well drilling work, the latrines or bathrooms work, and how that integrates in with getting girls, additionally getting girls the reusable hygiene pads. In your context for World Vision, you have WASH programming, they refer to it as. Explain a little bit of that from like a development practitioner point of view.
That's great. Thank you for that question. Well, we talked about what water solves and what the problem it solves. And so there's multiple things that we do especially in Zambia as a leader for World Vision in this, in doing what we call the 5 fingers of our WASH work. And they're the 5 things that need to happen at a household level before, and 80% of the community has to do this, of the village has to do this before we will drill a well. And that is to have a latrine, a rubbish pit, a tip tap for washing your hands so that when you come out of the latrine, you're washing your hands, a dish rack where your dishes are up off the ground, as well as a bathing shelter. And this isn't like what we would be used to here in the United States.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's just grass or whatever it is it gives them a place of privacy where they're able to clean. And so all of that is the sanitation and the hygiene portion of it. And all of that happens. And then the well is drilled, and the well, and the goal is that it is a 15-minute round trip walk from the households in that village. And so then that way it's 15 minutes back and forth, the water's tested, it's purified before it's doing, and then they form a water committee that manages it. So then it's not a World Vision well, it's that village as well.
Sure.
So all of that happens. And then also we're focusing quite intentionally around healthcare centers as well as schools, and providing access to clean water, sanitation, and hygiene around schools. One of the largest emphasis that we have as it relates to girls is in the school systems. We are making sure that there are latrines for the girls and the boys. And where possible, if the water is sufficient, is to do mechanized systems where we can have flushing toilets and shelters, or a cleanup area for girls. If they were to start their period while they're at school, they can go in and clean themselves up. And that's crucial. And then the work that you're doing, I know that you're partnering with us in those schools that you talked about, on how to make sure that they have access to the sanitary pads. Because before, I don't know if you talked about this before, but I mean, the girls are using old newspapers, they're
Hmm.
using grass, they're using leaves. I mean, they
Yeah.
don't have anything that's dignified. They
Yeah.
need a dignified way to care for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
it is interesting because obviously, the facility side is important in the whole story of how to, work to solve this problem. The reusable hygiene pads are a part of it, but the facilities at schools, et cetera, and is an important part of it as well. And I should just say for people who are new to So Powerful, a little bit of context, and I should have said this at the beginning of our session. Um, our process right now is to collect purses. This year, our goal is 24,000. And the distribution mechanism is that they go through World Vision's GIK container system. So gift in kind product donations are put in containers and then sent to Zambia. And so the purses get a free ride. Thank you very much. In that system to Lusaka, and then our team picks them up. It's kind of a funny thing. They go to Lusaka. Our team picks them up, takes them to our facility, fills them with the reusable hygiene pads and the soap and 2 pair of underwear. And then half of them, like this last year, are gifted back to World Vision for distribution at schools in your area development program locations. And so it's kind of a fun back and forth, but it's a huge, huge, huge blessing for World Vision to carry the cost of the shipping component to Zambia. We wouldn't be able to do this program if we didn't have that shipping underwritten. And so that's a key part of it. But then also on the ground in the distribution conversations, yeah, we are working more and more with the team there to have the health training occur and really do it at a high quality level where there's intentionality about what girls are taught. They're given a strong challenge to stay in school even when they're on their period, because now they have the supplies, and they're talked to with real clarity about what to do if you don't have the supplies, or if your sister or auntie
Mm.
takes your purse from you, and then on and on. And that's a key part of it. But I do feel like it's just become a wonderful partnership and collaboration together, where World Vision's technical skills in some ways really complementary, and then the things that we've put together and grown have started to really make a difference and help. And it's a huge blessing. So
Well, absolutely. And, we're delighted to be able to do the small part, the
yeah,
technical part and the shipping.
yeah,
And, it's all of your sewers or I mean, seamstresses,
hmm,
seamsterers. I think that would be if there are men out there that are doing it,
yeah. We call it sewers. You can call it. Don't write sewers.
I,
It sounds like sewer, but whatever. Yeah,
yeah, whatever. But all of you, I mean, it certainly could not be done without them giving of their time, talent,
yeah,
treasure. And they're getting in the trenches with you, right, to get
yeah.
this done, and with all of us. And so it does take all of us to be able to get this work done. And one of the things that I think is fascinating about the whole menstrual hygiene management topic that I'm seeing in the countries that I have the opportunity to visit, and again, Zambia is ahead of this in many, many ways, is that it's destigmatizing the conversation of menstruation
Mm-hmm,
between boys and girls. Boys are learning it right
hmm.
alongside the girls, and and the education that they're getting, I think is
Yeah,
phenomenal. So it's
yeah,
something that I think we could do better here in the States, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
More questions are coming in. These are some good ones. So I'll just take these in order a little bit as I saw them. So how does World Vision address, or we could talk about just, program development related to cultural standards that are harmful traditional practices, early marriage, female genital mutilation, on and on. I mean, HIV/AIDS related traditional practices were incredibly harmful. But just in general, thoughts on addressing community cultural practices that are harmful, and how does a thoughtful development practitioner, or the teams on the ground in Zambia, go about raising those issues and working through resolution with best practices or change to culture? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier that we advocate and we work at all different levels, right? And so, especially in Zambia, we have what we call the formal government, and we have the traditional government, which
Mm-hmm,
are the tribal leaders. And so we work with both. we work with the tribal leaders, and we work with the formal government at what these practices are. So for example, there's a big campaign in Zambia on ending child marriage. And so there's a law about it, that you cannot be married until you're 18, and that you do not give your children to be married before that time. But if the village chiefs are not in agreement with that, everybody follows them more. And so we work very, very intentionally with the village chiefs. Additionally, we work with the faith community and the faith leaders, because they are very well respected as well, and they begin to talk about it. So it's a like with HIV and AIDS, it's a very intensive campaign that you do with individuals at the community level, leaders at the community level, spiritual leaders, governmental leaders, everybody, and everybody gets on the same page, with campaigns and everything else on trying to change those behaviors.
I told my kids recently that imagine if COVID was terminal and you didn't know you had it for 3 to 4 years. Now you're talking about HIV/AIDS. And so that reality in the context of the global AIDS pandemic is just been incredible. I don't think as Americans we get it. Maybe COVID has given us a little glimpse of what the intensity of drama and emotion and concern that type of pandemic could bring. But to be honest, I mean, COVID is just not in the same league as HIV/AIDS for those medical reasons. But I think it's awakened us to the issue that, a whole culture impacted by something like that could just be incredibly negatively impacted. And a lot of the cultural practices back in the day were directly harmful to the community as it related to passing on HIV/AIDS. And so there are real challenges there. And it is thoughtful, important work to work with, when pastors get it wrong, their congregations get it wrong.
Absolutely.
And so, it's important to work at all levels, ministry leadership, community leadership, governmental leadership. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Okay, more questions.
If one little thing that I want to add about the COVID thing, the COVID, I believe, has been a global level set for us, because we've experienced here a bit of what other countries experience on a more frequent basis. Going to the grocery store and seeing shelves wiped out, that's not something that we're used to. And that place, other places. So it's been a global level set that hopefully raises the empathy and desire to get involved. Okay, next question.
If there are no access to good water, then when girls have reusable sanitary hygiene pads, I mean, I don't know if you know the answer, but how do they make do? What's when there's bad water or near no water, but just bad water, what's the steps and process for a village life scenario? What does it look like when there's just contaminated water?
They do everything in that contaminated water. So they drink it, they bathe in it, they wash in it. So the girls would continue to wash their pads in that contaminated water. And it's the same water that animals are drinking in. I mean, it's everything. And so that is the worst case scenario. There are some best case scenarios on where, until the water comes in, until there's access to clean water, it's how to purify water, either by boiling or by adding Clorox to the water, and to be able to chlorine to the water to be able to sanitize it. But it's not, they don't recognize that the water is bad water until they know that, until you tell them that the water is bad water.
Or in some places, not Zambia maybe, but guinea worm or other obvious waterborne diseases affect the community, and then they know. And if you've never looked into the guinea worm as a waterborne disease, you don't want to, because it is a horrific illness.
It's awful. Yeah.
Okay, here's another question. Curious where the country's government, town, and village leadership is on all of this. Girls' access to education, attending school while they're on their period, Do they try to let me read it properly. Do they try to modernize sanitary conditions and water supply? So in general, the communities in which you operate in are open and receptive to clean water, new latrines, or do you have to talk to them about the reasons why? They know, right?
They know.
They
Yeah,
know. They
they know.
know. It's
They
not a
know it.
it's not a sales
Oh,
job at all on that stuff.
no,
No.
no. And most of them have lost children, do you know? I mean,
Yeah.
to waterborne diseases, to diarrhea and dehydration and things of that nature. And so
Yeah.
bilharzia in the Western province, there's bilharzia.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just, they know on the water piece.
Yeah.
As far as girls, changing the dynamics for women and girls, we've seen, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, Jason, quite an improvement since the early days of, when I started traveling
Mm-hmm.
there in the late 90s. A lot of improvement. If there
Yeah.
was any good news about HIV and AIDS, it was the disproportionate impact of justice for women and girls.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it highlighted that things needed to change for
Yeah.
women and girls.
Yeah.
And so there we are trending in the right direction. And so not as quickly as I would like, but we are trending in the right direction and
Yeah.
making progress.
Yeah. Great. This is a wonderful conversation. Keep asking questions, y'all, if you'd like to. Kathryn, let me just ask you a question, which you didn't talk about in your presentation, but I'll just ask you, where did God call you in your life? When did God break your heart? How did you get a conviction for caring and serving? And maybe just spend a minute talking to us about your call.
That's a great question. I would say that it happened, especially around the women's and the girls' issues, but also of the community work. Is I was born into a Latino family. I grew up on a cattle ranch in northern Mexico, and I had 7 brothers and 1 sister. And I grew up with the dynamics of watching these gender biases or these gender trends or dynamics in a household.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, and we lived with my great grandfather. So it was, so there was this generational aspect to it.
Yeah.
And the girls didn't eat until all the boys ate. The boys didn't help do anything, of picking up their clothes off the floor or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's, all of that sort of thing. And my mother was very, very wise. And she sat down with my great grandfather and my father and said, I don't want my sons to grow up to be dependent on a woman for anything. I want them to be completely liberated. I want them to completely be able to take care of themselves. So it's important for them to learn how to cook, how to clean, how to do everything.
She used jujitsu on them.
Oh, I mean, and it changed the whole dynamic of our whole family. And it's amazing because my brothers are amazing husbands and fathers, and there's no dynamics of what their daughters can't achieve or what the men should do or anything like that. So that changed all of that. Also, growing up in an extremely rural context, I watched my mother. It wasn't called community development work, but she taught healthcare. I mean, she taught people about brushing their teeth, washing their hands. She delivered babies. She set up women in businesses. There was one woman that made saddle blankets. Another woman made soap. And then she taught them, most of them, had no literacy skills. So she taught them how to read, write, sign their names, how to count money, all of these sort of things. And so I sort of grew up with that. So growing up in Mexico, looking like I do, with my Mexican cousins that would just call me the gringa, but feeling everything like them. I come to the States, I don't feel like everybody.
Yeah.
I now look like everybody, but I don't feel like everybody. And my mother said, you just celebrate that you're the square peg that's not going to fit into the round hole.
Mm.
And I have to say that when I walked into the building for an interview at World Vision and saw that statue out in front of Christ, holding the basket with the children,
Hmm.
I felt like I'd come home, that all of that prepared me for it. And like
Wow.
God had picked me up, put me on his lap, kissed me on his cheek. And I said, could I work here or be here for the rest of my life?
Wow.
And I'm kind of doing that. As you can see, I'm getting pretty old, not
It's
ready to go
fantastic.
away yet. Not ready to be, the old white-haired woman. So at World
No, it's
Vision, but
great. It's the
but
wisdom. Yeah.
yeah, it's just been an honor. My only regret is that I didn't start sooner so that I could do it longer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Another question just popped in. So, and this is a great question from Marcy. She said, so the government officials know there's an issue with water, for example, but choose to do nothing. How how have you encountered either tribal leaders or government officials willingness and desire to serve their communities, or on the spectrum of not caring to caring? What have you encountered, and
I,
who
I
have you
would
seen?
say I would say that it's not an issue of caring. It's
Hmm.
it's it's or choosing to not participate. It's a lack of resources.
Yeah.
They just don't have the resources to be able to do it. And the work that we're doing in Zambia with water sanitation and hygiene, we partner with the government. We're registered with the government. The wells are registered with the government. We're
Yeah.
testing with the government. And we turn it over, and it's all a part of that. So it's not a lack of caring or interest by government. They're stretched thin
Yeah.
and don't have the resources.
Yeah. The member of parliament for it's in Lakulu area, so Western province. His name is Mubika, and
Mhm.
we met him 2 years ago. And when he learned about the So Powerful program, he just said, "Please, no one comes to Shingombo area is his province." He said,
Mhm.
"No one comes to help us there. Please bring the program for our girls here." And I mean, he was advocating as strongly
Mhm.
as he could when we met him for us to, and it really influenced us. I mean, our goal is to create, I don't know if you've, Kathryn, seen our Vision 2030 document. Our goal is to have a hub and spoke model where we have 15 facilities around Zambia where we can get closer to places like Lukulu and in, the really rural areas, but still have the employment opportunity and a facility that will serve the seamstresses and all that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I've encountered them the same way. Of course, we both know Princess Kasune Zulu, who's now a member of
Mhm.
parliament as well for Kimbe constituency, and she celebrates with dancing every
Mhm.
time anything positive happens in her, her area of
Yeah.
service. And she's a champion for the people of her community. And so I've just encountered people with a huge heart to try to make a difference in their communities, and they're gone into public service because that's what they're trying to do. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. I applaud you for going to the Western Province. That is one of the most devastating places that I've seen in the Western Province in
yeah,
Zambia. You know,
it's
I was
going to
so.
be a stretch, but
Mhm.
honestly, um, if we're called to serve the schools and the girls, how can you not?
Mhm.
And so,
Ab-
that's just the burden on our heart is how do we build a system in the next 10 years that will serve 3,800 schools in Zambia, and many of them are very rural.
mhm.
And that rural context, just as commentary, I would love your input on this as well. The rural context does have the most intense traditional practices, the most intense gender discrimination against girls, the most common situation in which girls are fetching water and never going to school or being married off really early. And so it is in those more challenging areas that we'll see if we can serve there, but we have the heart to try to do it, and we're going to give it our best try as more purse makers join us and more donors give. uh it will be the way we play it forward for the next 7 years. So
Oh,
8 years.
absolutely. And all of those things you're going to encounter, all of those things, you know, as I say, the cultural practices that are going to be challenging. And you're going to see, of course, you've seen this already, is you're counting 3,800 schools that are registered schools. It doesn't mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't even bring into account
Mhm.
where they build community schools out of nothing, and the teacher is the person in the community that went to second grade.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And
And they're
that's
under
who
a
we can,
tree. Yeah, they meet under
they're
a
under a
tree.
tree. And so, and there's all of that need and all of that opportunity there. And
Yeah.
so it's just very, very under resourced. And so,
Yeah.
you know, which is wonderful that you're doing that, that you're taking that on. So I applaud you for that.
Well, I just want to extend a huge thank you again for your willingness to share with our community and your wisdom, teaching me so much about community development and working to make a difference in the lives of the poor. And it's just an honor. So thank you so much. Your presentation was amazing. People are thanking you in the Facebook feed here, and we really, really appreciate it. So let's continue to move forward together and circle back to our communities collectively and give glory to God for all the good things that are going to happen in the years ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. The privilege is mine. And I apologize to everybody for our technology issues. You know, it's usually operator error. So I just want you to know that. But I want to thank all of your volunteers and your sewers and your donors and everybody that have enabled you to be able to do this, to make such a difference in the lives of women and girls in the communities that we love. And so keep on doing it, keep on raising that awareness, using your influence and giving of your resources. So powerful as an amazing organization. And so thank you for doing that. Okay.
Thank you. All right, friend. Well, let's conclude here. If you're live streaming with us for the whole duration, Cinnamon and I are going to do the after party Ask Me Anything session at 6 o'clock. So just in a couple minutes, we'll kick it off. And feel free to jump into the group and ask us questions about our programming, how we do what we do, anything about the organization. And that'll be a fun time as well. We're calling it our AMA, Ask Me Anything. So Kathryn, thank you again.
I love ya.
Bye, guys. Love you too.
Bye. Bye.